Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and the Championship Series baseball begins tonight, but I'm not talking about that today. No, I'm getting back to our beloved New York Mets. I want to talk a little bit about a couple of players whose Mets careers either are or may likely be over. I want to touch on those couple of players today. I'm going to be doing stuff like this over the next few weeks during the playoffs and into the World Series. And hopefully by the time the World Series is wrapped up, the Mets have a general manager selected. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's talk about a couple of players who are on the bubble with the Mets. The one obvious player who will not be back next year, at least not in my opinion, is Jerry Blevins. Jerry Blevins is a free agent, and unfortunately for Jerry, didn't have a great season in 2018. Certainly his worst season statistically since becoming a Met, frankly. That's going back to 2015. So he just didn't pitch well, and that's unfortunately for Jerry. It means he's not going to be back with the Mets for sure, and he likely won't get the money that he could have made if he had another successful season. So that's unfortunate for Jerry Blevins, but he will not be back with the Mets next year. At least not in my opinion. Now, there are two other players who I believe are on the bubble, and one of them is beloved, and the other one is, a Met. I'll talk about the Met first. That's Travis d'Arnaud. Travis d'Arnaud, as we know, is coming off of Tommy John surgery. He missed the better part of 2018, and that seems to be the recurring theme with d'Arnaud. The potential that's been there from the time he signed, was traded to the Mets, it has been untapped, and largely because he's been unhealthy. d'Arnaud has never been able to stay on the field. He peaked in 2015. He had a great year in 2015. He had a really good postseason in 2015, but he's never been able to do this consistently because his injury history has been such that he's not been on the field. And so d'Arnaud is going to be arbitration eligible, is arbitration eligible, and he may be a guy that the Mets just non-tender. With Plawecki seemingly taking the reins and sort of, I don't want to say leapfrogging. I really feel like Plawecki and d'Arnaud are really neck and neck as far as like their productivity and their abilities to be everyday starting catchers. But Plawecki, for the most part, has been able to stay on the field, while d'Arnaud certainly has not. So I think that factors in as well. The other elephant in the room in all of this is whether or not the Mets go out and acquire a catcher via free agency or via trade. And I think that the answer to that question will ultimately help answer the question of, does d'Arnaud stay or go? Personally, I want the Mets to go out and get Wilson Ramos. I really do. And unfortunately, I'm talking about d'Arnaud, who's been injury prone and can't stay on the field, and I'm shifting to, let's go out and sign a guy who's going to be a free agent, who's going to make a lot of money. Another guy who can't seem to stay on the field. But man, when Wilson Ramos is on the field, A, he's a really good defensive catcher, and B, the dude can just flat out rake. I mean, he is a pure hitter, and he's the kind of hitter that the Mets could really use in their lineup, because he's not a uppercut swing hitter. He's a line drive hitter. That's why he's got a batting average around 300 pretty much for his entire career, at least over the last several seasons. So I'm in the camp of, let's go get Wilson Ramos. He costs money and nothing else. We don't have to part with any prospects. So I'm in that camp, and unfortunately, because I'm in that camp, it's really why I don't think Travis d'Arnaud will be back with the Mets in 2019. Finally, and this is another tough one, but it's Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores has proven over the last several seasons to be an extremely versatile player who can play adequately at multiple positions, has a knack to be a pinch hitter, and has always, up until last season, been able to mash left-handed pitching. 2018 was weird for Wilmer because he didn't have those crazy splits like he's had in the past, lefty-righty. But still, I mean, Wilmer's always been a presence on this team. He's, I think, like, he and David Wright were like the two poster children of 2015. You know, David Wright for having come back through the adversity and being able to play in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the 2015 season. But even more than David, Wilmer Flores just so represented everything about that season with the tears of joy and the home run off the Nationals in extra innings the day after Tears of Joy. I mean, or 2 days after Tears of Joy. Wilmer and running around the bases, I mean, that's a memory that for me will be etched forever in my brain. I will never be able to remove that image of Wilmer Flores rounding third base and getting halfway between third and home and clutching at the Mets logo on his jersey and like shaking it like, this is me. This is, I'm on this team no matter what. And that made Wilmer Flores, for me, a household name. A guy who bleeds orange and blue, who's been with the organization since he was 16 years old. He doesn't know anything else. And these are all sentimental reasons and things that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, with Wilmer's current conditions, with both of his knees being arthritic, he's never been the most mobile player to begin with. And if he's going to be dealing with arthritis as he ages, he's going to be less and less mobile. He's profiling more and more like a first baseman or a designated hitter. And the Mets certainly don't need another name to throw into the I have to play first base mix. They've got like 17 guys in that camp right now. Wilmer is one of them, but he's nowhere near the top of that list. You know, Jay Bruce, Dom Smith, Peter Alonso, those are the guys whose names need to be talked about playing first base. Wilmer has played first base in the past, but really only because he's needed to, because of injuries to other players. He's never been a first baseman. Wilmer, as you'll recall, in 2015, was the starting shortstop for the Mets. Now, that was because Tejada was hurt, but still, he started at shortstop in the World Series, Wilmer did. He's played third base, he's played second base, he's played first base, so he's been a versatile player. But the Mets have enough versatility at the present time, and Wilmer has been leapfrogged at virtually every position, with the exception perhaps of third base and Todd Frazier, which is an asterisk because we don't know who will be the third baseman. That'll be a topic for another time. But my point is, as the Mets are trying to evaluate how to spend money in this coming off season, one way to allocate some and free up some funds would be to not bring back a limited player like Wilmer Flores. The sentimentalist in me says, don't even think about it, you bring him back. But the realist in me, the baseball fan, I mean, the baseball mind in me, not the fans, separating the two things, knows that it's probably the right thing to part ways with Wilmer Flores. Hard as it may be to say as a fan, it's probably the truth. So I don't know that Wilmer Flores is going to be back with the Mets next year. Those are the three names I wanted to talk about today. I did mention I want to talk a little bit more about third base. Todd Frazier was the name that came up. There are a couple of free agents that might be interesting to discuss, and we're going to do that early next week. So until then, I appreciate your watching the video. Enjoy the playoffs. They continue this evening with the championship series tonight and tomorrow, and then taking us all the way in through the World Series. But I'll be back before then, so until that time, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met, and as always, let's go Mets.